Chapter 2. In Chapter 1, we talked about how you could add, subtract, multiply, and divide real numbers. And now that you've learned about adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing integers and real numbers, we're going to actually use those to do a little bit of algebra. It's very little bit of algebra. But you got to start somewhere. So today we're going to do simplifying and evaluating expressions. Simplifying an expression means you're making it as small as it could possibly go. Evaluating an expression means that there's no more letters left, no more symbols left. It's all just a one number answer. So when you simplify, you can end up with letters and numbers and symbols in your answer. But when you're evaluating, all you're going to have is a one number answer. When you simplify, it has to be as small as possible. When you evaluate, since it's just a one number answer, it will be as small as it can possibly go. So if we asked you to evaluate using these rules right here, letting A equal -2, B equal 3, and C equal -1, and I asked you to evaluate 2A plus B, then I'd have to have 2 times whatever A is, and we said A was -2, plus whatever B is, and B is 3. So then I'd work on it from left to right. -2 times 2 is a -4, plus 3 gives me -1. Using those same rules, if I were to do AB over C, remember if it's side by side with nothing in between it, that means that we're going to be multiplying. So that's going to be -2 times 3 over -1. -2 times 3 is -6. Divided by -1 is a +6. And then one more would be like 3A plus 2B minus C. 3 times what we know A is -2. Plus 2 times what we know B is 3, minus C, which is -1. 3 times -2 gives us -6, plus 2 times 3 is +6, minus a -1, and we talked about how minus a negative was the same thing as plus a positive. So -6 and +6 cancel each other out, making that answer +1. All that seems simple enough. Stuff you've seen before. Stuff you shouldn't have very many questions about. And even though we've already used it, I need to go into a little bit of detail about something called the order of operations. So in order to help you out in the future, you remember those post-it notes that we got? You need to pause so you can go grab a post-it note. We need a post-it note to write down the order of operations on. There are 4 steps in the order of operations. Step 1, you need to take care of parentheses, and grouping symbols. That means all sets of parentheses need to be taken care of. The whole point of this parentheses is not little parentheses like we had over here. It's parentheses that actually have an operation inside of them. Those are what you need to take care of first. You also have brackets, braces, and those long fraction bars. All those are examples of grouping symbols that need to be taken care of in this step. Whenever you're working with a grouping symbol, you also need to start in the middle of that grouping symbol. So you go to the very center of the problem to start your stuff. Step 2 is going to be taking care of exponents and square roots. We'll talk more about those in the next section. Step 3 is all your multiplication and division whichever comes first. From left to right. And then step 4 is all of your addition and subtraction. Whichever comes first. From left to right. So let's look at a couple more problems. We got these 3. Let's get a little bit more challenging. Using the same rules as we had up here. Purple. 16 plus 3 divided by 3 minus 11 times 2. None of those letters are in it, just all numbers for right now. Looking at our list, do we have any parentheses or grouping symbols? No. Do we have any exponents or square roots? No. Do we have any multiplication and division? Yes. So I have division here, and I have multiplication here. I need to do my multiplication and division in the same step from left to right. So this is the first one I get to. It's the first one I'm going to do. Anything that did not get a little brace underneath it to show that it's multiplication or division is the stuff that drops straight down. So I bring my 16 down and my plus down because it doesn't have this underneath it. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1. This doesn't have a symbol underneath it. And 11 times 2 is 22. Then I go through and I do all my addition and subtraction from left to right. So the first thing I'm going to do is that right there. 16 plus 1 is 17. 17 minus 22 is the same thing as 17 plus a negative 22. Different signs mean you subtract the two numbers, so that's going to give me a negative 5. Let's try another one. If I had more room, I'd do it out the side, but I'm starting to run short of room and I need to leave my rules up here for a second. So the question is, do I have any parentheses or grouping symbols? Yeah, I got a lot of them. So remember I told you need to start in the very center. So when I look in this grouping symbol is another grouping symbol. Inside this grouping symbol is another grouping symbol. So I'm going to have to start right there. So since none of this is getting messed with, I go ahead and write it down. 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's 4 times 5, and then another times 4 gets written down from the outside. Then looking at this is no longer a grouping symbol because it's not got more than one thing inside of it. But this is, because it has more than one thing inside of it. So that's the part I'm dealing with now. Which means my 30 minus has to come down, and then a times 4 on the end has to come down. 4 times 5 is 20. Then all of this is in a grouping symbol. But inside of this grouping symbol, I have to follow the order of operations. So we don't have any exponents or square roots. I have to do my multiplication and division before I do my addition and subtraction. So while you look at this and you think 30 minus 20 is 10 and 10 times 4 is 40 and that'll be it. That's not how you do it. So because this isn't in a grouping symbol, but I do have some multiplication here, I have to multiply first. So that leaves me with 30 minus 80. And 30 minus 80 is negative 50. That's your answer. Russian, because it looks like you think you know the answer, is not the thing to do. This is the section that starts to trip people up. That's why we put this on a post-it, so you can take it from your notes and stick it on your classwork page, so when you're doing your classwork you'll have it right there and you can follow it step by step by step by step. And then when you're done with your classwork, you can take it from your classwork and put it on your homework and do it step by step by step by step. Because I'm not trying to get you away from this, I'm trying to get you to memorize it. The more you look at it, the faster you'll memorize it. Just make sure you're doing it right. So you got to make sure you're following the steps every time, even though it's really, really easy to follow what you think it should be instead of what it actually is. Okay. Let's get me some room because I know you got it written down now. Get back to our evaluating. Using those rules right there, we want to evaluate negative 2 times 3a plus b minus 5c. First things first. Before you can do your order of operations, you need to go ahead and put those numbers in. Make sure whenever you put these numbers in that you're actually putting them in parentheses so you can keep up with your positives and negatives correctly. So that'll be negative 2, parentheses from right there, 3, and then instead of a, I write what a is, but I put it inside of parentheses so I can keep up with the fact that it's multiplied by that 3. Plus b is 3 minus 5 times, because it's multiplied, c, which is negative 1. Now that I have it all in numbers, I can do the order of operations. So where should I start with my order of operations? I'm supposed to have grouping symbols. This is a grouping symbol, but that one is not. Remember, if there's just one number in it, it can't be a grouping symbol. So this is the one I want to do first. I want to concentrate with what's in here. inside of there, I have to follow the order of operations. So I have to do my multiplication and division before I can do my addition and subtraction. So I need to take care of this part first. So that's negative 6 plus 3. Oops, 5 times negative 1. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3 minus 5 times negative 1. And now I have it down where there are no more grouping symbols. All we've got is multiplication and subtraction. So I'm going to do this multiplication and then that one. That gives me a positive 6 minus, because it doesn't have anything underneath it. And then 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Talked about how minus and negative is the same thing as plus and positive. 6 plus 5 is 11. One more. Two minus ABC over A. So the first thing I need to do is plug in those values. So that's 2 minus A is negative 2, B is 3, and C is negative 1 over my A, which was negative 2. So I have to do my multiplication and division on top, my multiplication and division on bottom, my addition and subtraction on top, my addition and subtraction on bottom, and then I can do my division to make it just one number. So on top, my multiplication part is right there. So negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, then times negative 1. Negative 6 times negative 1 is a positive 6. On bottom, I just had negative 2. Negative 2 minus 6 is the same thing as plus a negative 6. So that gives me negative 8 over negative 2, which is a positive 4. Order of operation problems can really trip you up because you get used to wanting to do what you think should come instead of following those steps every single time. So I've got one more I want you to try. Using those same numbers. Pause it. Let's see how you do. Okay? So first thing I want to do is go ahead and put in my numbers. So that's negative 2 plus 3. Then negative 1. Put in parentheses. Minus the opposite of A. 2 is a negative, A is a negative 2, so the opposite of negative 2 is a positive 2. Minus A, which was negative 2, times B, which is 3. In between this parentheses is nothing, which means that must be some multiplication there. So negative 2 plus 3 is a grouping symbol, and then this is a grouping symbol. That one doesn't have a grouping symbol. so we need to wait on it. Negative 2 plus 3 is a positive 1. Negative 1 minus 2 is the same thing as plus a negative 2, so that gives me negative 3. Like I said, this is multiplied together, so that gives me negative 3 minus negative 6 plus positive gives me positive 3 for my answer. All of our answers ended up having just one number in the answer. That's how you know you're done, because we were told to evaluate. Classwork for this section. Page 53, numbers 2 through 14, even. Remember, you need to do that classwork, then take it to your mom and check it with what she has and make sure it's correct. That's like super important for some sections, and this is one of those sections that's super important for. Make sure you did it correct. Now you can actually do it with showing less steps, but if you don't show any steps, that's a problem. Trying to do stuff in your head is not the way to survive in algebra. Go ahead and get used to writing down the steps. Get used to showing your work underneath, because that's how we do it in algebra. So go ahead and get used to showing your work, get used to writing it underneath, get used to boxing your answers. Make sure you show your work on these so it'll help you find your mistakes if you make one. Then, once you get all of these correct, you can go work on your homework, which is page 53, numbers 1 through 21 odd. And I would say I'll see you tomorrow, but chances are I'll see you later on today. Bye.